Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel, of course, take place in Hell, where there is a pretty strict power hierarchy. However, one way to move up through it is through the collection of Hell's currency, souls. So today, we're going to talk about that hierarchy, as well as how exactly money plays into it. My name is Deepcut, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into it. The highest ranking person in Hell is of course Lucifer, who as a high-level angel is able to create the rules of Hell. This in particular seems to be how the rule of sinners being restricted to the Pride Ring came about, as according to the Helluva Boss Twitter account, it's not just that the Earthborn sinners are restricted to Pride, but that they can only exist there, making it so they likely couldn't even be smuggled into lower rings the way you might smuggle some items. These angelic magic seem to be what fuels also Charlie and Lilith as well, getting their power from Lucifer, and allowing them to outrank the princes of Hell and the other royals such as the Ars Goetia. Traditionally, all demons are considered fallen angels, but in the Helliverse we have the distinction of earthborn sinners, native-born demons, and fallen angels. Outside of Lucifer and his family, it is uncertain which of the royals, if any, will be fallen angels as well. Within these other royals, we have the 7 princes in the Ars Goetia. The Ars Goetia are a group of 72 demons whose power seems to stem from their own dark magics. The 7 princes, on the other hand, seem to have natural power as well, but appear to at least in part derive that power from the collection of Hell's currency souls, which appears to be the primary way that lower-level natives and earthborn sinners can rise to power as well. For this video, I'll be discussing merchandise from the Helliverse merchandise store, as well as some information from early live streams, neither of which should be considered canon, and instead are just reference for how Hell's currency might work, but we should expect some, if not all of this information, to not be canon to the series proper, when we get more of an elaboration on what's really going on here. The Ars Goetia are royals, but unlike the 7 princes, they appear to serve Hell with their positions in addition to being served. Stolas, for instance, is not just in charge of unraveling the constellations, which he does to serve the Ars Goetia in understanding the future and their existence and role in it, but also to do things like bless, or rather curse, the crops that feed all of Hell. This was at the Harvest Moon Festival, where Satan himself didn't even make an appearance as the Prince of the Wrath Ring, but Stolas as a prince in the Pride Ring does. All of this is to say that the Ars Goetia seems to have power that stems from primal dark magics that help them run Hell, and that's where their power comes from, as opposed to Lucifer, who uses his power to maintain control, but not necessarily to help with the structure. The rest of the 7 princes, however, appear to live very playboy lifestyles. Each ring looks like it is built up around its prince being some sort of celebrity figure that has also enslaved its population. Gluttony, for instance, we know to be ruled by Beelzebub, who traditionally is associated with the devil figure the same way Lucifer or Satan is, and thus should be a naturally powerful figure. However, unlike Lucifer, Beelzebub seems to get their power from exploiting the Hellhound population. From what we can see, Hellhound adoption is common in the Gluttony Ring, where orphanages are run like pounds, where other demons can come and get a Hellhound to treat more like a pet or servant. The more humanoid demon species likely only give birth to one child at a time, but like real dogs, Hellhounds likely have an entire litter when they breed and can have multiple litters in their lifetime. Beelzebub seems to profit off of this system, explaining why in the Gluttony Ring it looks like Hellhound parties are a major focus, as we can see from the episode 8 preview that never got aired. The goal is not to help Hellhounds by creating orphanages for them, but rather to sell their children like pets, with Hellhounds often being treated as a sort of property. All of this appears to be how Beelzebub is able to maintain her own lifestyle, indulging in her favorite bub, as Moxie calls it, Beelzejuice, by encouraging gluttony and drinking among the Hellhounds as well, so they inevitably breed too many children to take care of, and Beelzebub gets to profit off of exploiting those children while acting like a saint. Among these princes is of course Mammon, the Prince of Greed himself, who, like Asmodeus, seems to also have a playboy celebrity image, with there being a concert-like setting where imps are cheering for Mammon in the 2022 trailer, and Blitz even has photos of himself and Fizzarolli wearing Mammon merch in their younger years. Now, Mammon, as the Prince of Greed, is not only interested in Hell's currency, but also is in charge of it, with the Varosgaban t-shirt from the Shark Robot store indicating that there is a city in the Greed Ring called Mint City, where the money is likely minted. Every single ring seems to have a prince exploiting its lower classes, but even the imps have their Harvest Moon Festival and the Hellhounds their parties. They're all being exploited, but they are like caged chickens, unable to escape the farm, but given just enough to maintain their comfort while their eggs are harvested. But in Greed, that doesn't seem to be the case. In Greed, the city seemed to be even worse than the other rings, with every aspect of Greed being exploited in some way. Their land, air, and water are all polluted, with an excess of goods being produced in factories of the Greed Ring, likely for other rings, so more money comes into Greed, but more of its resources are leaving. These factory jobs would likely provide very little income for the imps working there or other natives to the Greed Ring, and with Mammon in control of everything, he would be able to raise the price of things in the Greed Ring while keeping the wages very low. This would pressure imps into getting loans, but of course they would not be approved for legal loans, and instead would have to take illegal loans from loan sharks, a literal term in the Greed Ring where mysterious shark demons appear to be in charge of large loan-based businesses that Moxie's father Crimson was able to get into. Crimson, as an imp in the imp community, would be a way that the loan sharks could gain the trust of the local imps, as the loan sharks themselves likely have a bad reputation, and other species probably don't want to do direct business with them for their loans. Through Crimson, and perhaps other demons for other communities, the loan sharks would be able to extract even more wealth from the system, giving the imps barely any money to begin with, and then having the loan sharks illegally take back even more in interest. This leads to very comfortable upper classes of elites like Crimson, the loan sharks, and presumably Mammon, who I imagine they all work for. Mammon's fascination with Hell's currency is so intense that he prints his own face on the money. However, despite coming from the Greed Ring and being printed by Mammon, the term souls makes me think that these currencies are actually based off of the value of literal human souls in Hell. Not that each dollar is worth one entire human soul, but rather an entire human soul can be broken down into multiple bills. This may be wrong, as souls may just be a fun in-world term to use for currency, but it's entirely possible that the actual value of Hell's currency is backed by the Earthborn sinners, and the more souls you have in your possession in Hell, the more powerful you would become. While some overlords like Alistair appear to have manifested in Hell overnight with great power, the majority seem to have built up their power over time by collecting Hell's currency. This would explain why some of Hell's elites seem to be so bent on getting more and more people into Hell while creating larger and larger lower classes. Each year we have the annual extermination where angels come down to kill Earthborn sinners who are otherwise immortal, but despite this there are still missions to go up to Earth and spread sin, so more people go to Hell. Perhaps just another way to get more power in Hell overall, as even with the death of an Earthborn sinner from an angelic weapon, the power that backs this currency from them may still be retained. So if this is true, what we have here is a system in Hell backed by 4 sources. The angelic powers of Lucifer, which gives him dominion over all of Hell, and which may be used to back the other 7 princes to some degree. The 7 princes seem to have their power largely from mass control of their rings, trying to create a self-refreshing system that serves them in Hell in some way. The Ars Goetia appear to derive their powers from more ancient demonic sources, a dark counterpart to Lucifer's own angelic magics, and finally souls, which appear to be both currency and the actual value of an Earthborn sinner's life, is a resource that is perhaps exploited by every class of Hell and which relies on the death of more humans on Earth in a sinful state in order to continue growing. But what do you guys think? How do you imagine Hell's currency to work, or any other part of its power structure? Do you think souls are actual currency, or is souls just a fun name for otherwise normal money? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.